game had been their plight for decades, forcing them to rely on plundering the other clans for food. The legendary grain stores of the Raven had been the Ram's last hope, but when those were destroyed by fire, the work of Griffin's own hand, it left the Ram with no other option. The Ram would have to migrate south. And in 23 short days, Griffin would meet his people where the rivers Ina and Totum converged, just outside the entrance to the Valley of Wolves. Griffin took hold of Zoe's hand that had been rubbing his back. He brought it to his lips and kissed it before pressing her palm to his cheek. Serenity. The peaceful feeling emanated from her hand, another healing blessing. It seeped from her fingertips, healing all of the dark and broken places inside him. It also seemed to numb the lingering pain of his arm, an injury sustained when he had used his forearm to block a killing blow from his ex-unit commander. Had Zoe always been so powerful? The gift of healing was very rare and usually passed down the maternal line. Healers, with their potions and herbs, worked miracles on dying men, alleviating their suffering and speeding the healing process. While fighting the clanless, Zoe had tapped into a new kind of healing power. A power she promised to explain to Griffin once she was ready, whatever that meant. Joshua stood in line with a small band of Kodiak a few yards away. The red-headed boy bounced on the balls of his feet as he looked down past the flowered sloping meadow into the valley below. The sun illuminated their left sides while casting harsh shadows on their right as they looked down at their futures. Not my future. Zoe's and Joshua's future. Zoe tugged Griffin's hand and led them to stand with the rest of their company. A different kind of panic inched throughout Griffin's body as he surveyed the land before him. Judging by the hundreds of tents and fires burning across the small valley, there had to be over 1,000 men camped inside the refuge of the mountain. All his life, Griffin had been taught that no army of men could defeat the Ram, and to his knowledge, no two clans could. But this, he surveyed the lands and swallowed. This was something Ram officials had not expected, and it frightened him. Zoe walked a few paces ahead of the group. As she moved, the lines of her body danced in graceful waves. "What's wrong?" she asked, looking back when he didn't follow. Griffin struggled to find words. Retracing her steps, Zoe walked back to meet him. A chill shot up Griffin's arm as Zoe placed her hands around the bend of his elbow. She looked up at him, expecting a response, but he couldn't remember the question. "Still sick from the slot canyon?" Her head tilted to the side with the question. Griffin regained his senses and gestured to the massive throng below. "I didn't realize there were so many." Her fingers slid down his arm to grasp his hand. "I know you're worried about your people, Griff. We'll figure something out." Worried about his people? Yes, but more worried about Zoe. About Joshua and Tess, and leaving them all to fulfill a deadly promise. Worried about saying goodbye. Before Griffin had a chance to respond, 24 men bearing spears and drawn bows descended upon them from behind. They wore armor of boiled leather and carried rudimentary round shields, similar to the Ram, though inferior in make. Joshua pulled out his knife, and Ikatu, their Kodiak companion, shouted an order that had all of his men pressing their backs to one another. Griffin joined their ranks and yanked Zoe into the middle of their protective circle. "Let me through," she ordered. To Griffin's great annoyance, Ikatu made room for Zoe to step outside the circle and address their attackers. She looked as calm as the sea, her piercing blue eyes surveying every man without fear. It did not matter to Griffin that these were Zoe's people. He did not want spears aimed in her direction. "I bear the mark of the Allies." She raised her hands to show they were empty and pulled the tie of her cape loose. The heavy wool fabric cascaded to the ground. Griffin didn't appreciate the stunned expressions of the soldiers, the way their eyes ran the length of her body. Zoe pulled her collar down over her